and welcome to this week's episode of Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters, a paranormal podcast for the strange and unusual,
by the strange and unusual.
This week's episode is episode 5, and we are going to talk about shadow people. But before that, we just want to remind you that we are still doing our contest. There is one correction that we need to make. The episode with the last code word is episode 12, not 9. And just keep listening for those code words.
Shadow people. People of shadows. My favorite dark, mystical fuckers.
Are they mystical?
I'm being very sarcastic. Shadow people are assholes.
Yeah, they're also freaky as fuck, but
yeah, they really are.
So yeah, I hear shadow, and my mind always thinks of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, I could see that.
I do not understand this reference.
That's fine. I can show you later.
Yeah.
Each of us, at least here, I know we've all had our occurrences with shadow people.
Mm-hmm.
And shadow people have been seen by people for centuries, really. Nobody knows exactly what they are. There's a lot of speculation on what they are and a lot of theories, but exactly what the hell they are? It's
no
a big
one
old
actually
question
really
mark.
knows, because, like, yeah, there's... Ugh.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, some think they're jinn, others think they're ETs,
Mm-hmm.
other dimensional beings, like, all that kind of stuff. Some think they're ghosts, which, I mean, very well could be. Everyone has, like, a guess at what they are, but, yeah, like you said, no one has any idea.
A lot of the experiences people have, even some of the experiences each of us have had, there's a lot of similarities between them, but even though there's similarities, the big question is the stuff surrounding it, you know? People have come across them in the middle of the night when they're, like, in between sleeping and waking up, or something wakes them up in the middle of the night. The experience I had an experience where I was awake, completely coherent, and
same.
One just happened to be there, and it was just like, what the hell? So yeah, this topic is one of those topics that it's like, I want to talk about it, but I know that the more you talk about it, the more
questions
questions, but the more hyper aware you become after talking about it and after listening to it, because shadows aren't just shadows. They just, you're super hyper aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I mean, shadows are still shadows, but these things are, different. A lot of times you do occur to see them, like, on the, like, your peripheral, if I said that correctly.
Yeah.
Big word.
Peripherals.
That's usually, like, what makes you, like, you turn your head really quick, and you're like, what the hell? Like, you almost see it, like, dart past you so quick, but, like, you still see something. Now, one of the theories behind that is the fact that, like, they say, like, when your eyes are focused in front of you at all times, like, since they're unfocused on the side, like, it breaks down that perception or those barriers that, if you want to call it a veil or whatever it is, but that's why you're able to see stuff from the side. Now, I don't know about any of that, but...
See, the shadow person that I saw was straight up front. Like,
yeah, I've seen...
right in front of me. Like, and whether or not it was a shadow person or something else, I mean, and that's the thing. Shadow people in their own
story.
are like...
Enlighten us on that story. You keep highlighting that story, but just tell us that
I didn't know
story.
if I was going to dive into it, but I guess we might as well. So I think I may have brushed up on this in another episode. I can't necessarily remember. But a couple years ago, I was in my apartment, and I was with a friend. And if anyone's familiar with the movie Practical Magic...
I love that movie.
They have midnight margaritas. Everyone's dancing.
Wait, you say margaritas or murderitas?
Margaritas.
Oh, I heard murderitas. I was like, damn.
Austin has murder on the brain.
Yeah.
Everybody watch out.
But no, so my friend and I were like, we're going to do this. We're going to make midnight margaritas. And we were just hanging out, having a girls' night. You know, there wasn't anything, like, we weren't watching scary movies. We weren't even thinking about, like, spooky topics or anything. Well, it was getting close to, like, midnight, so we're like, you know what, we might as well, like, head down into the kitchen and start making them so we can come upstairs and actually, like, enjoy them, you know?
Were you guys listening while you were making it? Please tell me you were listening to Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett.
We were not, nor were we listening to Lime and the Coconut. But as we were getting ready to descend downstairs, so the way my apartment and the house that I live in is kind of structured. So there's the main house, and I technically live in like an in-law apartment above the garage, but it's also attached to the house. There's two entrances into my apartment. One is through like the main house, but the other one is down. If you go down these stairs, you go through the garage, and then it comes into like the main kitchen, which is where we were headed. So I was significantly ahead of my friend. She was up at the top of the stairs, and I think she was on her phone, but I think she was in the middle of like sending a text message. So as we were going down there, she was stopped at the top of the stairs texting, and I was getting ready to go into the garage. So I go to turn on the light switch that illuminates the garage, but for some reason I didn't. Like, I ended up opening the door first before I turned the light on. Well, as I opened the door swung open, and there was this figure of a person standing in the garage. And at first, my mind was like, oh shit, we're getting robbed. Like, there's someone actually standing in the garage.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, taking a closer look, seeing if I can get features, but there wasn't. It was literally a dark person in the garage, no features, and the weird thing about it was it looked like smoke, or it looked like
it was like misty in a sense. Like
not so
foggy?
much misty, but it looked like cotton. Like if you took cotton, but it was black, and you put it together to make it look like the form of
fluffy?
No, like just the denseness of it, just like the texture. Like there was something not right, obviously. So I remember telling my friend, like, don't move, get back up the stairs. And at the time, she was just like, Lauren, what's up? And I'm just like, listen to me, get back up the stairs now. And I went to go flip the switch to turn the light on. And when I did that, it dispersed. Mm-hmm. Like the smoke or whatever it was just like dispersed in like a puff around the garage. And there was no one there. Now, where I was standing, directly in the background is a door leading to, like, outside. Mm. And there isn't anything on the window for the door. It's completely white. Or it's, like, completely, like, clear. So I can see the outside light. So it wasn't like I was just looking into just blackness. Like, the light from the outside usually illuminates the stuff in there. So there's a car, like, my grandfather's car was there, and usually the light, like, illuminates the side of that. If there's a ladder pushed up against the wall, the light would illuminate this. There was a distinct, like, silhouette that broke that light that showed that there was a person. So it was, at some point, there was something solid-like that would make that. It wasn't like the light was shooting in between there. It wasn't super thin, like silk or sheer like fabric. There was something legit there that created that solid silhouette. Mm-hmm. And when I flipped the light on, it was gone. Like there was nothing standing there. It was just a clear walkway. Car was there. The ladder was on the complete opposite side of the garage. And by the time naturally my friend came down, she was like, what the hell? Like, you're dramatic, you're freaking out. And it's like, no, there sure as shit was someone or something right here. And I checked the door was locked. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no way that if there was a person there that they could have gotten in or out or moved that quick. Mm-hmm. So, and I was just like, okay, really freaking weird. We ended up having, like, our margaritas, but, like...
How many? I would have drank a lot after that.
Right? Same. Well, I wasn't trying to dwell on it. I was trying to kind of like go over.
Oh, yeah, that was the cure from the margaritas. Wow, it's fading from my mind.
Like,
Wow,
but it's
crazy.
still like, there was still something in the back of my mind that reminded me, like, this was a really fucking weird experience that I had, but whatever, you know, maybe it was a trick in my mind or something like that, you know? Later that night, eventually when my friend and I went to sleep, I remember going and like being in my dream state and having this thing in my dreams following me and trying to attack me. Like it was very, very vivid. And I'm a heavy sleeper. Like Austin can attest. Like
God.
She is.
there's nothing that stirs me. There's nothing that wakes me. I'm not a sleepwalker. Like, so when I was dreaming and this thing was attacking me, like I was feeling it. I was feeling it trying to choke me. I was feeling it trying to like gouge at me. And I was trying to fight it back in my dreams. But before I was able to do anything, my friend shook me awake and was like, Lauren, you are having a nightmare. You're thrashing about. You're moving. And she's like, this was weird, you know, because we've had sleepovers multiple times, like, but nothing like this had ever happened.
Yeah.
You know? And that whole next day, I felt like I had literally gone 12 rounds with a brick wall. Like, I was just, I was very lethargic. Like, no matter how much caffeine I had, my energy was drained. But something told me that I wasn't, like, this wasn't done. This wasn't over. So, me being, like, a witch, the first thing I think of is I have to cleanse the house. I have to make sure that I have, like, my protective stuff with me. Like, I you know. So, another friend and I, when I told her about what had happened, we went to a crystal shop. I stocked up on my tourmaline and my obsidian, and, you know, I smoke cleansed the house. But something told me that it was still going to come back. Well, the very next night, I go to sleep, and it did. It showed up, and the same thing. It was trying to attack me. There was something that I had that it wanted, and it was trying to attack me.
Well, energy.
And what happened eventually, like, it got to a point where I was trying to hide from it, and I knew it was coming close, and I was just, in a way, I was almost praying. Like, I was saying, like, please, if there's someone out there that can help me, please. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm tapped out. Like, I can't do anything anymore. Like, this is, I'm out. Like, I can't do this. This thing's going to win. And the next thing I know, it was like someone pulled me, like, the best way I can describe it, like, you know when a mother dog picks up her pups
by the neck.
by that, yeah. It was like someone pulled me from that area and placed me in this, like, beautiful, like, prairie field, like in this grove almost of trees. And there was a babbling brook nearby, and I was completely out. Like, that thing wasn't near me. It wasn't anywhere. But I was pulled to safety almost from that.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning when I woke up, I was like, what the hell? Like, I still felt like I had, like, fought somebody physically. Like, it was draining and exhausting. But for back to back to back, like, after that, after I was pulled back and there was nothing there, I haven't seen it. Like, I didn't see anything or have any experience like that until, like, years later. But that was, like, my big, like, holy shit moment, you know?
Yeah, no, it sounds like a big ass holy shit moment. Because, like, my encounters, because, like, I grew up in a haunted home and stuff like that. And
same, apparently.
a part of, so there is, part of me used to think I was just nuts, right? Like, seeing the stuff I saw.
Oh,
my
you
parents, well, thanks. Because
We
my
all
parents
are.
really couldn't see any of this stuff. But it wasn't, honestly, like, what sort of started turning my parents around was, like, my mom, she would say that, like, my dad would have these, like, night terrors. Like, Never happened ever in his entire life. They were already married for like 15 years at the point. She's like, he's never had these, you know? And so he was thrashing around so much, she actually was afraid to sleep next to him because she was like, I'm going to get hit, you know? He's going to like hurt me just because of whatever he's trying to fight off in his dreams are causing such issues for him. Mm-hmm. So she said there was one night in particular where she just couldn't fall asleep, right? My dad was already zonked out, and he was starting to have his like night terrors, right? And she's like, just looks over, and she was about to wake him up, and she said she actually saw this like black mass. Like there wasn't really a silhouette to it or anything like that, but it was like hovering over my dad. Like, and she like paused because it was, I mean, it's
terrifying.
Completely granted. Yeah, she was terrified. She didn't know to run or what to do. But like, she was trying to like wake my dad up, and then like she just couldn't do it. And it almost sounded, she said, then you started hearing him almost like gasping for air. Like he literally couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. His eyes shot open, which my dad doesn't remember any of it, which, you know, sometimes is like one of those things where people who suffer through this stuff, they just, when they're asleep, they don't recall any of it the next morning. It's only people who've been there next to them have actually like witnessed it, right? That can sort of attest to it. And that happened for a little while with my dad. It wasn't a nightly thing, but it was at least a few times a month where it would be something like that, where he was almost like choking for air and stuff. And it got to the point where my dad really wasn't even sleeping anymore. He was just staying up. He'd like take naps throughout the days.
Like power naps?
Yeah, power naps to sort of just have enough energy to get through work and stuff like that. But then he would stay up until like 4 a.m. and just watch TV, right?
Yeah.
That is when my parents were like, okay, maybe Austin's not insane. Maybe he's actually seen stuff that he's claiming to see. The freakiest shadow figure kind of incident I ever saw was like one night I woke up just out of nowhere, just woke up, and I sat up in my bed and I was like rubbing my eyes. I had to be like 10 years old. And I just was like, what? Why are my parents standing at the edge of my bed, right? Like it was a perfect silhouette of my mom and my dad, but there was no features or anything, but just waking up and everything like that. I was just like not really putting that like this isn't my parents, right? And I'm like, Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing? Like sort of chuckled about it too, because I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, and I thought they were gonna like wait. I thought they woke me up to tell me, you know, something, right? Like, oh, hey, we just found out your grandmother's dead, or so and so, or something happened, right? And
I like that that's just common, like, oh, like grandma's dead,
well,
we're gonna wake you up in the middle of the night like this. And
you know, like I had a grandmother at that time who was like a chain smoker, so I figured that one day we're gonna get that news, right? But no, like as I focused, my eyes came to focus more, I realized it wasn't them, and then they started doing these like weird vibration, this weird like jittering kind of thing. It was like their frequencies were like different, and it was like distorting like the air around them in a way. Like the best way I can say is like, you ever take like, you know, those like Sonicare toothbrushes, right?
Yeah.
If you were to take that and to put it into a jar of water, like you see all the molecules like vibrating around it. That's sort of what it looked like. And me being only 10 years old and being like, what the hell am I seeing? I freak the hell out. I like panic roll out of my bed and like slam the lights on there, and there was nothing.
But so you saw your parents. It wasn't just like their silhouettes. It wasn't just, but you saw like features.
No, I didn't see features.
Okay.
Because like they were standing. So the way my room was is like my bed was up against the wall, and in front of my bed was my window. And like at that time, there was a street lamp that was outside my window, and so it would always shine light in.
Right.
So their backs were faced to it, kind of thing. And so it was drowning out most of that light, but that was the only reason I could actually see like silhouettes.
So similar to my
Yeah.
There was enough bleeding light to make out what you're seeing,
right,
but not enough to actually give any details to features. So yeah, that freaked me the hell out, and I remember telling my parents about that, and they're just like, "What are you talking about? We never got up," because I still was like trying to convince myself so I could go back to sleep. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I was half asleep. Maybe they were in here. Maybe it was a prank. Just whatever. Trying to rationalize what just I saw. But yeah, no, that was like my freakiest moment. Because I used to like get up in the middle of the night and I had to go to use the washroom, and downstairs, like, you know, my dad had a huge like 200-gallon saltwater fish tank. So the lights with that were always at a different time interval due to the fact that like where those fish came from and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so there'd be times you'd wake up at like 3 a.m. and the like UV lights would be turned on. Yeah. So there's plenty of light to emanate and would display like the, you know, light and everything like that. So it wasn't like pitch black in our living room or anything like that. But I used to see like basically shadow people like darting in and around our kitchen and stuff like that. Through the living room, sometimes you'd see what would look like shadow people like peeking out around like my dad's fish tank or just sitting in one of the furnitures and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It was really weird, especially like growing up in a house that was haunted, and you just sort of deemed all these things usually always just negative, which, you know, now getting older and all that stuff, like there's definitely not everything is not always considered evil or good or whatever,
right?
You know, but that's my creepy one. What you got, Amanda?
I have seen shadow people my entire life. I have so many stories that I could go on forever. So I'll probably just put them in there here and there while we're talking about all of this, because they've followed me my entire life. They're the main thing that I see. So yeah, I have so many stories.
My name's Amanda, and I know more than you.
No. So if we look at your guys' stories, like the biggest like commonality of it is the shadow person blocks out the light and all of that. Like, is like what I'm trying to like get at is like, well, if they're blocking out that light, like, are they like the darkness in them? Is that like
their mask? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So like how we have our mask, which is our flesh, our bones, like all that stuff that complete us.
Like if you were to stick your hand through it, would
like,
it be solid?
Like, okay, yeah, no, that's an interesting idea. Because like, yeah, would our hands go through them, or would it actually be like we could physically grab them?
Yeah.
Because like when I flipped the light switch on when I saw it standing there, it did. It like dispersed in a puff of smoke, like something you would see out of like Supernatural or like in witch shows.
And it's like if they're darkness and all of that, and they disappear when light like comes through. Like, why aren't they disappearing when because they're blocking out that light?
Right.
Like what differentiates that?
Yeah.
In my head, like that's not clicking.
And so my question for you, Austin, like,
oh boy.
When you saw your parents, or like you saw the silhouettes of them,
yeah.
Like you said, you had a window straight across from your bed.
Yes.
Okay. So were you able, like, how much distance was between your window and your bed?
At the time, because I didn't have any like desk and stuff there, I'd say about 4 feet from the edge of my bed to touching the window glass.
Okay, and you were like, so I'm trying to like, so you're in your bed. Are you like in the middle of your bed, and then like would that put you like right in the middle of where your window would be? There's a point with this, I know.
I'm going with it. I'm just trying to think of where it was. I mean, it was like
It was a long time
A long
ago.
time
Yeah.
ago.
Because the reason I bring
Yeah,
this
no,
up...
I was dead center in the mattress because at that time I had like a twin mattress. So, you know, like.
So the reason I bring this up is one of the commonalities that a lot of people experience with these shadow people is they usually typically see them either through a doorway or like through like where a window would be. Like, and when you think about it, doorways and windows,
Are
each
entry
of them,
points?
yeah, they're entry points. So they're like in that in between. So when you think about the in between, bridges, anything that you're coming and going, like a lot of people say that it's potential for portals to be there, you know, because you're seeing in between. They're not one place, they're not in the other.
It's a transitional space.
Yeah, you're standing like right there in it. So when I saw my person, like I was standing on one side of a doorway and it was through the other side of the doorway. So.
No, yeah, no, that's definitely. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way because I used to see a lot of spirits coming in and out of doorways, which makes sense. They like just appear as soon as they like exited a doorway, or they would dissipate as they entered one. So that's a mind boggle right there.
Like, because through doing years of research on this after having like my experience, you know, I'm still at that point where I'm like, that happened years ago, but I still kind of want to know what the hell they are. It's just because I've had that main one. Like, I've had similar experiences, not that intense, but like my awareness of them and seeing them has been a lot more. Like, I can tell if there's one there. I can see them, but knowing what they are, like, I almost wonder if maybe with the portal kind of thing, if it's something multidimensional.
I could get behind that because I know even surprisingly, Stephen Hawking had an idea of like if these entities were to come in between our world and their world, it's just a parallel universe, right? Like it's a different amount of kind of space, like a different dimension stacked upon ours. And his thing was, you know, like when we see these things, they're coming up as like dark matter, right? So absence of light, but it's still a substance thing, you know, like how you brought up, Amanda, like, could you put your damn hand on it or will we go through it?
Right.
Now, I have no idea why.
Have you ever touched a shadow person?
No.
Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters wants to know.
No.
Right into the show.
Okay. Yeah, you can do that.
No, Amanda, have you personally ever touched a shadow person?
No.
Tell me where the shadow person touched you.
But see, like, that's the thing, right? No. Going on a serious note there, you're joking, you're laughing, right? Like, you've never physically, like, no one's ever physically touched one. But they've been physically touched by them. And you could swat away or you just get restricted. And one of the theories is that with Stephen Hawking, I think one of his ideas was that what it is it's gravity, right? So like it's a force because we know gravity exists. We know what it does, like how it works in a lot of ways.
So are you saying they're like black matter or that
and
dark
essentially,
matter?
yeah. So that's what his idea is. Like we're seeing dark matter. And when you asked like why me, like why are these coming to you, like no one really knows, but gravitational pull like affects light, right? And if we're energy, that could very much be in the way they're trying to siphon energy off through us, if in a sense, in a way of like maybe in a weird way their own gravitational pull, meaning like black holes and stuff like that snuff out light. They warp
and that's
their
what it
surroundings.
Felt very much like when I was in my dream state and it kept coming after me. It was very much felt like it was trying to suck out life or light. Like so when I first started coming into my gifts, when I was basically how it was explained to me was that there's a light in me and that my gifts, the stronger and stronger they get, the brighter and brighter the light gets. Right. You know, but like a chakra, you know, you can block out the light through certain things. And this happened, come to think of it, that experience happened right during one of like my spiritual awakening moments. So it could have been very much so attracted to the fact that I was going through an awakening and, you know, that light, because it did. It felt like it was trying to suck the light out of me. It felt like it was trying to do these things.
Yeah.
So that actually...
So, and it's weird because, like, you got attacked, right? My dad got attacked. I didn't get attacked. Like, not once have I ever been attacked by, like, a shadow person. Like, I've never had an experience like that.
I haven't either.
So it's weird because, like, you'll have a huge amount of people around the world that believe in shadow people, go through night terrors or sleep paralysis and stuff like that, and they're always a very negative. Like, there's always negativity around shadow people when they see them, but then there's a small handful of us that there isn't. Like,
I think it's
so
could it be classified as like a species or like a race of certain types of entities?
Well,
because there's different kinds. Like,
so that's where, like, if anyone, I don't know if you guys know anything about the jinn. I know a little bit, but I know that's sort of the idea, right? You had God created angels, then he created us out of clay, and then there was the jinn. And when God asked the jinn and the angels to bow, the angels bowed, the jinn did not. They looked at us as inferior. So in a lot of the ways, like, when people talk about jinn, they're accumulating everything that's sort of the in between us and angels. Everything just sort of falls in line with what they are. And one of the ideas is that the jinn are very complex. They have their own societies. Some hate us. Some are, like, really intrigued by us and like, ooh, who are these? And others are just like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah. I read an article online. There's this lady, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She was, is a leading expert in, like, the paranormal, and she actually wrote a book about how shadow people, she backs up that theory where she believes shadow people actually are jinn.
Okay.
Jinn are also infamous for being shapeshifters. And jinn are actually, like, they're still, like, biblical. They're in the Quran.
Yep.
You know, in the Quran it says that jinn were created from a smokeless fire.
Yes.
And she says that, which I thought was interesting. So, according to her, to Rosemary Ellen Guiley, jinn cannot accurately make up another human. Like, they cannot 100% make up a human. So if they tried to, like, shapeshift into it, there'd be some sort of, like, abnormality. So, for example, the Hat Man, you know, that's another thing that we're going to dive into. She says, say if a jinn shows up, but it can't accurately get, like, the head structure of the face. What do? You try and hide it and disguise it. So you put a hat on.
Right.
You have a cowl that's popped up more, you know. And it tries to hide the imperfections, but also trying to, like, appear in that sort of way.
Yeah.
She said that when you think about it, America in itself doesn't have a lot of those, like, origin jinn stories. The Native American have their form of stories.
Yes.
But there is no, like, creature as such that's like American. It's always other cultures. So she's saying that a lot of the jinn that we've seen come up has to do with a lot of bedrock has actually been imported from the Middle East out here. So importing all of that from an area where they highly believe that jinn, they, what's the word I'm thinking of? Habitate. They're indigenous to, and all of a sudden say something is trapped inside of that bedrock, and that bedrock is imported here to the U.S. for, like, say, you know, that's where all of this influx of shadow people sightings are, at least in her theory, which I thought was really interesting. I've never thought of it like that. And then I don't know much about bedrock and construction and stuff like that. So when I was reading that, I was just like, that makes a lot of sense. You know, if you have a haunted item, you bring from somewhere else in the world and you bring it to another country, you know.
It's not like it doesn't stop being haunted.
Yeah, it just
carries over.
literally, it just transfers over to that different
so,
area.
But that was from an interview that they did in 2013. So.
Yeah, I was going to say the only mention of jinn in, like, here in the Western culture, like through biblical means, is like King Solomon. He didn't believe in enslaving humans. So when God asked him, like, you're now going to be a king, you know, what do you want me to give you, right? He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for power. He asked for wisdom. So God was pleased with that and gave him not only wisdom over just the world in itself, he also gave him wisdom in spiritual wisdom. So he was able to control.
I want to do a whole episode on King Solomon because the amount of intrigue with him and the Solomon seals and the sigils and stuff, like that is
future episode at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to that, so like when he got that power, he was like, well, I need to build a kingdom. But he enslaved through magic, he enslaved the jinn to do all of his bidding. So like they built his kingdom and all of that stuff. So if there is a resentment towards us, and why if we are to we take that leap, right? We take that leap that shadow people are jinn, and I mean, I would get why they want to torment us, because if they were enslaved to do against their will all the biddings and stuff like that, they would hold resentment against all humans.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, King Solomon.
So, I mean, there's that, but I mean, there's also the whole idea of like they were told to bow down to us, right? Like in a sense, like no one wants to bow down, especially if you're an intelligent entity and you do have you are able to shift between this world and a different world kind of thing. I'd be in agreement. Like, why should we bow down? I don't believe you should bow down to anything or anybody.
That's why, like, the archetype that, like, genies, which are another, like, jinn, that's why they're tricksters. You know, they're trapped in a bottle, basically. A human usually ends up finding them, and then they grant you wishes. But the wishes don't always end up aligning to the way that you want. There's always some loophole that the genie always does. And that kind of...
It's like, oh, you want wealth? Okay, I'll give you riches, but you're never going to be let alone.
I'd be salty, too, if I was trapped in a bottle or some sort of structure.
Hell yeah.
You know. But yeah, the whole culture of jinn, from what my understanding is just like, there's like a whole
we could
world
also
with
do
them.
We could also do an episode on them too, for like our folklore and mythological beings parts, because they're a couple of cultures have a similar like jinn shapeshifter thing like
well
that.
I mean, you got like the fae and stuff like that. That's sort of like Celtic shapeshifters. It's their own kind of jinn. That's why like a lot of people just sum everything in between, you know, God, angels, humans, everything in between is jinn. You know? So I don't know. It's cool. It's an interesting theory.
Another theory that is intriguing is shapeshifters, shadow people being actually the I don't know what you would call it, but like when you astral project and say like I decided to astral project to Amanda's house one night because I don't know, why not? Like me astral projecting and being in Amanda's house, like I would show up in Amanda's house in the form of like a shadow person.
Yeah, like your energy.
Yeah.
Like your soul. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that, but that's another popular one that, you know, people go, oh, it's because, you know, there's someone astral projecting or astral traveling. And...
So it was you running up and down my stairs.
Hey, Lauren doesn't run. Okay, so it sure as shit wasn't me.
Yeah, another thing like that I read was some people think that shadow people could possibly also be like guardian spirits, which I don't really lean that way based off of.
Yeah, there's
like,
too many negative encounters that people have with them.
Yeah.
To be like, they're a protector. So,
and they just kind of like, they're just kind of there.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think where people get that is when you see them, typically they're just standing there watching.
Right.
And I think that's where people got that from. But it's like,
so, kind of going back to the whole where we brought up them possibly being from like a different
like plane,
like multi-dimensional like plane. So it's popular belief that, you know, Samhain and Beltane are the 2 times a year where the veil between this world and the other are at its thinnest.
right.
You know? And it's, you know, it's true. You know, you see weird shit. You always, like, things are super, super heightened during those times of the year.
Right.
You know, you see more spirits. You have more encounters with entities and elementals and stuff like that. And we can all attest too, you know, especially this past year, the amount of entities and spirits and beings that have popped up out of fucking who knows, you know, has been exponential. You know,
Yeah.
all of us have had weird experiences, especially during that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember, you know, it was very beautiful, beautiful weather this year, but going out in the backyard, particularly at night, you know, no one really sees a shadow person during the
Right.
dead ass day. But just going out in the backyard and being like, oh, what is this? Why are there so many of them? And they're not doing anything. They're just kind of
They're just there.
wandering.
Yeah.
Like, you're staring at them, they're staring at you. There's a lot of staring and just kind of like going, okay, well, I'm just going to keep moseying on. Like,
yeah.
it's weird, you know? That's why I don't know. So far, the theory of it being like something from another multi-dimension or something like that, or another plane, me personally, I kind of back that one up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just because we don't know how many planes are. We don't know how many dimensions there are. Like,
well, we don't even know if that's even a thing. You know, there's just theories.
The FBI came out not too long ago and gave us some evidence on it.
Of multi-dimensional?
Yep, different planes.
You're going to have to show me that article.
I was going to say, I know what
will.
Austin's doing tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to read that. Yeah, no, I know, like, another thing, some people think it's, like, you know, dead people. You know, it's
Yeah.
That's
our souls
the one.
just wandering around as some black mass. But I was like, I don't know.
That's the one I can't back up. That's one theory that, because being a medium, being a psychic, being someone that's sensitive to that stuff, it's a completely different feeling when you're around other souls.
Right.
You know? And it's when you're encountering or when you see shadow people, or you kind of sense that they're around, and it's nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, I personally can't. I don't know.
And also, it's like, if they can shapeshift, like, who's to say that they can't shapeshift into looking like the silhouette of someone that you love?
Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that theory, I can't really get behind that one either.
Now, have you guys heard about the old hag one?
Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
That one, like, so she gets tied in with shadow people a lot. But a lot of paranormal investigators and stuff like that believe she's her own thing.
She has another name. What is that?
Some of the images I saw of her, I was like, damn, I would not. Nope. That would freak me out a hell of a lot more to see her than to just be like, oh, there's a silhouette of a dude.
So I have a old hag story, which also has to do with sleep paralysis. Like, I don't suffer from sleep paralysis very often. I've had a few like experiences with it, but this one in particular scared me shitless. I was in high school and I was laying in bed and I had finally fallen asleep, and then what literally felt like 2 seconds later, I quote unquote woke up not being able to move.
Mm-hmm.
couldn't breathe, couldn't talk. I was alone. So I was freaking out. And then I kind of like, I just like moved my eyesight up and I see this creepy looking old woman with hair like everywhere just staring at me. Not doing anything, just staring at me. And I'm like, no. And I'm like still freaking out, and she's like slowly like coming down and closer and closer and closer to me. And by the time she's like in my face, I finally come out of it. And I like freak out and I'm like crying and I'm like moving around, making sure that I'm like fully back. And like I won't go to my light switch and I flip them on. Didn't sleep for like 3 days after that because I was terrified of it happening again.
Yeah. Well, talking about not sleeping for a few days, right? So that's an actual idea of why, some doctors and theorists out there, like apparently people who take meth and stuff like that, like they hallucinate and they always claim to see shadow people. So they're saying people with sleep depravity and all of that, like you start to hallucinate, you start to see, you just start seeing things. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, yeah, I see shadow people. I see these things lurking around corners and all of that. So it's like, same thing with like sleep paralysis, right? It's like, if you want to really dumb it down, just pretty much like you have the wake up gene, you have a wake up hormone or chemical, and you have a sleep chemical, right? And basically what happens there is that wake up chemical drops too fast and mixes in with like the dream chemical. And so like you're still in a way, you're in that conscious waking point, but you're still in REM. Now, no one knows why. It's always negative. No one knows why when you suffer from sleep paralysis, like you're seeing all these crazy ass, like demonic things or anything like that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a subconscious thing. Like,
because like I wonder if it's like stress and anxiety and stuff because you're freaking out because you're awake but you can't move.
And like all of my sleep paralysis like encounters have been when I've been super stressed.
And that's honestly like a lot of doctors are saying sleep paralysis is very much triggered by like stress, anxiety,
residual trauma.
Yeah,
like that's a big one too. A lot of people that have had, very similar to like residual haunting, poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
Seeing shadow people is one of the things that is part of like that can be caused by someone who's had excessive trauma. So that's another.
The trauma is me.
That'll be the new one.
So that is definitely another like theory to that.
I think the one I don't align with the most is that it's aliens. There's people that like very much claim that shadow people are just aliens.
Yeah, I've heard that. I can't align with that.
And you know me and how much I love jumping to aliens right away, but this one I agree. I don't think it's aliens.
What?
Now I can't necessarily say that because if it's like multi-dimensional beings or like things on other planes,
I guess that's true.
Like when I think like those could technically be counted as aliens or like
but they're claiming like actual ETs. That's what they're stating.
I don't think it's that in a sense. Like I don't think someone in a flying saucer is like parking the saucer outside and coming in and helping themselves to your kitchen. Like I don't think it's anything like that.
Bologna sandwich.
I don't think I've ever just been like, I want a bologna sandwich. You're the only person that I'm like, bologna. That's
Dude,
like,
I like bologna. Get off my back.
Nope.
You're such an old man.
Hey, whatever.
But yeah, I can't. Yeah, I don't. The ET thing isn't one I favor.
We mentioned the hag, but what about the Hat Man? Because He's a very common thing. I mean, there's a documentary on the Hat Man.
A lot of people have seen Hat Man, myself included, and it's probably one of the scariest moments that I've ever had.
So, like, what makes that different than seeing other, like, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing other shadow figures versus the Hat Man?
I don't know what it is about it, because, like, I see shadow people all the time, and I'm just like, oh, okay, it's here, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then when I saw the Hat Man, because I've seen him several times.
Mm-hmm. I have not seen
I've never seen the Hat Man
figure or anything like that.
And I don't know what it is about it. Like, why, like you said, like, why is it so different from all the other ones? Like, the only thing that could come in, like, that pops into my head is that maybe he's, like, a higher up in, like, this, like, species or
like
whatever
in this
it
weird
is.
hierarchy of...
Yeah.
Like, he commands other ones.
Yeah.
So his presence is more demanding.
I've only heard stories. Like, I have a friend, and she has 2 little ones. And because, you know, this year has just been fucking crazy with everything. And spirituality is included with that. Yeah. There's a lot of cosmic shifts happening. There's, you know, we're finally in the age of Aquarius as things
Anyways,
go. But she sent me a message and was like, hey, you know, we talk about this stuff, but there's been like a lot of weird activity around the house. And she's like, both of my kids can't sleep by themselves because the moment that they're alone, they tell me that they see a dark figure, and he's got a top hat and he's got red eyes, and she was like, neither of my kids can like sleep alone. Like, the one sleeps with her, the other one sleeps with her husband. And she's like, and on 2 different occasions. Now, her kids aren't the type to be like, they're super young, so they're not going to get together and be like, well, we're going to conspire and we're going to say this. Like, both of them in 2 separate occasions came up to her and said, this is why I don't like sleeping alone. And it's true every single time. And they've tried it, you know, they'll put the kids to bed, and then, you know, you try and like sneak out so you can continue working on stuff. But the moment that the parent's gone, like, the kid sees the Hat Man standing in the room and freaks out. But he's never there when they're in bed with their kids. And now they see him in the hallway, so they'd be looking through the doorway to see him. Mm-hmm. And on other occasions, they'll see him standing at the front, like at the foot of the bed. Mm-hmm. So, but that, and both of their stories completely line up. Tall, dark, and not just tall, like, they're talking tall. Like tall, like 7,
and he reports with it's
feet.
Like minimum 6 foot up to like 10. 10 feet.
Like, he barely fits in the door frame, they said.
Yeah.
And they're kids. They're not going to know about that kind of stories. And my friend's not the type to be like, yeah, I'm going to sit here and let my kids listen to this stuff or watch this stuff. Like, there's no way her kids would have their hands or even be exposed to that.
Right.
But the fact that they both are seeing it, they're seeing this thing that other people everywhere else has seen, it's, you know, it's jaunting.
Yeah.
So there was one night where she was laying in bed with her youngest, and she was laying on her side, you know, cradling the little one, and she could almost, like, she felt like there was breathing, and she can hear breathing on the back of her neck. And she got up and she looked, and there was nothing there. Mm-hmm. But then when she laid back down, she felt it.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I've never seen it with red eyes. It's always just the silhouette with the hat and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's tall, very tall, slender, like, creepy as fuck. The one time, like, the most, like, distinct time I've seen him, it was in the house that I live in right now, and kind of, like, give you a context of my basement. And I think I've done this before, but we have our laundry room, and like when you're facing it to the right, there's a bedroom, and then to the left, there's a storage room. Well, I was down there, I was doing laundry, and I was like hanging out in the bedroom down there, and I was sitting there, and I looked into the storage room that has like glass doors that you can see through, and like there was light illuminating, so I could kind of see in there, like to the back of it. I saw this like tall thing standing there, and I was like, what the fuck? Like who is in the house? Like my brother's tall, but he wasn't tall at this point, so I couldn't like do that. But so I stood up and I like started to walk a little bit closer because I was just like, well, I can't. All I see is this figure, this silhouette, and then it like because at this point it was like crouched over, like looking at something on the ground, and then it stood up and it was tall, and then I saw the hat and I was just like, oh hell no. Not right now. Not right now when I'm
This
down.
is how I go.
When I'm down here by myself and everybody else is a whole floor above me, like asleep. Nope. And then it like, I was like, I couldn't move. Like when it like turned its head to look at me, and I was just like, fuck. And it like started to like inch closer and closer to me. And then when it hit the door, because we keep it closed for the most part, it just like dispersed. So that was like the most distinct one. Like I've also seen him like in my hallway, like before, not in the house that I live in now, but in a different house. And I've seen him there. I've seen him literally just at the foot of my bed.
I had a friend, his bedroom used to be in the basement, and he would always like it got to a point where like it still scared the shit out of him every time.
Right.
But like it got to a point where it was fairly regular that he would wake up and he would see the Hat Man in the doorway of his bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if my sister actually saw the Hat Man. She used to, she weirdly called this one shadow entity that she used to see when we were growing up, like the Money Man or something like that, or something along that term. Because she said, no,
well,
like,
I mean,
hear me out. Because, like, she said this
I'd be
slender...
welcoming the Money Man.
Well, she said he was, like, this tall, slender, like, shadow figure, right? Mm-hmm. Had a hat, but also was carrying this, like, burlap sack looking, like, kind of thing. And she used to wake me up all the time and be like, I need you to sleep with me. I need you to sleep with me. It's the only way he stays away. So sort of like your friend's situation where her kids are spending the night constantly in each other's rooms. It was the same thing with my sister. Mm-hmm. That was the only way she could sleep for a long time, because she used to think that like he was going to come and take her and put him in the sack and carry her away, and we would just never see her again. So yeah, I don't know, maybe, or it's some different kind of thing she used to see, but yeah, she used to say that it was always a hat too, and he was always tall and slender. So Jasmine, if you're listening to this, let me know. Let me know.
Yeah.
Weird thing. I think it was a documentary that Austin and I... Was it that one?
Yeah, it was literally called The Hat Man.
There was two documentaries.
We watched The Hat Man, and then one I watched a few days ago was called The Nightmare.
There was one where there was a woman being interviewed, and she talks about, like, the Hat Man, and she describes, like, the red eyes and the tall hat and everything, but she was having, like, sexual encounters with it.
That was The Hat Man.
Was it that one?
That one. It's like an hour long on Prime Video if you want to watch it. But yeah, everyone else is talking about how horrendous it is to see him.
And
she's
terrifying.
Like, she's like, I don't know. I think he's sexy. And he comes and does things, and it's like, maybe they were like, we need to spice up this documentary, something weirder.
That sounds more like an incubus or a succubus attack. Like,
maybe.
That, which they have been, like, that is another theory.
Yeah.
You know, that they're a form of succubus or incubus.
Yeah.
So, That sounds more like that. We actually had to write into the show. Our top fan, Amber,
Woot woot.
suggested that.
Thank you, Amber, for being a listener.
Yeah,
Love
thanks,
you, Amber.
girl. Amber suggested that
There you go.
we take a listen to another podcast called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, specifically episode where they talk about listener mail, and they have write-ins and stories from like Parler and like Cambridge. And someone wrote into the show, and her story was really interesting. It doesn't specifically call out shadow people. Like, Amanda and I were listening to it.
Yeah.
But it's a very, like, intriguing story. But I actually have a similar story that kind of, like, backs her thing up. So I'm going to kind of go through and sum it up. So this woman who wrote into the show was having a dream. Now, she was alone in her bed, and she had a dream that her significant other, who wasn't in the same house or even room with her, her significant other was, like, somewhere, like, did she say, like, on the other side of town or something like that?
Something along those lines.
She had a dream where they were cuddling. And basically, in the dream, like, in the dream they were cuddling, and she ended up waking up, and she was sleeping on her left side. And all of a sudden, didn't she feel like there was something on her,
So she felt like her feet were, like, intertwined with her significant other
like
still.
they were spooning.
Yeah. And
I had the worst thought. I thought they were locking toes together, and I was, like, throwing up over here. Oh.
Austin, we need to get on that level of our intimacy. Lock
Not
toes with me.
Ever. Not ever.
But no, like they were spooning, you know, and sometimes where you're like your feet
like you
are
interlock
touching
your
and-
legs.
Yeah, we get it.
Like
Move
that.
on.
So when she woke up and she realized that he wasn't there, but she still felt it, like that was kind of like a shock. And then once she made the realization, she like sat up and she noticed this like tall white, but white as in like super light, like sunlight, you know,
Yeah.
this thing, this figure sat up and like whooshed past her. Like as if it was a person there.
Yeah.
And then like almost like this being was like, oh shit, she's awake, and then like
Yeah.
darted off. But you saw it in the form of like this white light kind of being. She said that she could see through the figure. There wasn't like distinct features of it, and like it like started talking to her, but it was in a way that she couldn't understand because it was talking so fast that she couldn't hear like an actual word. Right. And it was also kind of like low.
Yeah, It was like a
almost.
low, deep.
And then like when she started like realizing that it was there, like it started to like fade almost.
Yes.
Like, and she just remembers being like, no, don't, and like it was gone.
Yeah.
Like, and she actually said that she was like, no, and then it like dispersed.
Yeah.
But that was her story. Now, it's not necessarily like, I don't know, like, depending on what shadow people are, if this was a shadow person related story, Austin, what are you thinking?
No, it doesn't.
You've got
to
this
me,
look on your face.
No, it just doesn't feel like a shadow people kind of thing. Like, it doesn't feel like a shadow person kind of story. It just sounds like something different. That, I mean, 'cause, like, you think shadow person, you literally know what you're talking about, like dark mass, like, and this thing was made of full light, and she didn't feel threatened by it or anything, clearly, because she was like, no, don't go away, like, I'm like, stay here with me kind of thing. So
because she thought that it was her significant other.
So yeah, I don't know, to me, I don't think it does. It's a cool story.
I had a similar situation. A little embarrassing, but when, sorry, Austin, this has to deal with my ex. My ex and I parted on not so great terms, and it was during, like, in that area where I was kind of, like, making peace and coming to terms with things. One night I was in my room, and I was by myself. There wasn't anybody else in my apartment with me, and I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep, you know, and it literally felt like someone walked, like, past the edge of my bed, and then it felt like someone sat down. Like, I can feel the movement of someone, like, sitting down on the edge of my bed. And then I literally felt like he sat down at the edge of the bed, and then it felt like they crawled, like, across the bed to meet me where I was in the middle. And a very similar situation. It felt like we were spooning or we were cuddling, you know? It was really weird. And then when I, like, made the realization at what it was already, like, too late. I was, like, in my dream state, and then the dream, like, progressed. Like, it turned dark when I fell asleep. You know, it wasn't this happy moment. It wasn't this, like, reliving great memories moment. It was, like, whatever it was, it turned very dark, very violent. And then I remember waking up, but I remember waking up and I was still on my side, and it like, my heart was racing super fast, you know? But, like, a similar situation, you know, where you actually feel something else there. And I did. I felt the bed, like, move and shift and the weight distribution. And it literally felt like there was someone behind me cuddling me. And now the lights were off. I didn't see anything. Like, I didn't see an actual figure. I felt like someone was there. You know, when you feel that sensation, like, oh, someone's watching me right now, and you turn around and there they are, you know.
Every single day of my life.
But that's what it felt like, you know, knowing that there's someone there and feeling it, and then that whole situation leading up to it, like, so, but if we're going with the theory that these things are shapeshifters, right, you know, it very well could have been, you know, if it was in the middle of a shift, you know, think about it. If you're going to suck life, or you're going to feed, if that's your source of feeding, like, if you're going to feed off of something, you're going to, you know,
you want to show up as something that they're comfortable with so that they let their guard down, and
right,
you can get in easily.
Right.
Easier.
So there's that. There's, you know,
words.
Yeah, words. Like, you even said it yourself, Austin. You saw these figures that were very much similar to the forms of your mom and dad standing at the edge of your bed. It wasn't your mom and dad, but the figures themselves were very similar to them, you know, yeah. So they, like, shifted to make it seem like it was something familiar, you know. The story I just explained, you know, the energy was familiar, you know, it felt like, because you can kind of gather certain information from, like, just intuition, from feeling, you know. I'm pretty sure I gave this analogy in a future episode, you know, when you're trying to do remote energy work, you know, the best way that I kind of honed in on the gift was thinking about someone's aura, you know. The mental picture that I say is, you know, pretend that you yourself are in a room. There's no windows, there's no doors, it's just a plain room. You know, you're sitting in one corner. Place one person that you know in the other corner. Like, say if I had Amanda in that opposite corner from me. We're not saying anything. We're not, you know, there isn't any movement. It's just Amanda's in that corner. You know, if I close my eyes, the feeling that Amanda gives off, you know, that whole essence of Amanda.
Sorry.
It's very different than if, say, I take Amanda out of the situation and I put, say, Austin in that corner. You know, it's a completely different vibe. It's a completely different energy. Now, say I take Austin out of that corner and I put my grandmother in that corner. Like, again,
we get it. We get
it's different. But you can still gather, like, how a person feels, you know? that's how that felt when I was in that situation. You know, it felt like it was my ex at that point, you know? So if it's shape-shifting, like that would make sense. This
So you're thinking
person's story,
when they can shift, they're also able to shift their energies.
it would be
to make
an
it
energy thing,
seem
yeah.
like they are mimicking whoever they're trying to mimic, in a sense.
Not so much, I don't know, because it's hard. You wouldn't be able to mimic the energy, but
That's sort of what you're
be able-
stating
yeah.
in a way, because you're like, well,
it's a familiarity, you know,
like-
if they've been studying you and, you know, you mimic. So when you shapeshift, you mimic.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they're mimicking their
So-
energy to try to trick you into maybe letting your guard down or something like that.
Right.
So, I don't know, maybe.
So I think what this lady's story kind of goes along with that, you know, the whole shape shifting and potentially, you know, succubus or incubus.
Yeah. I mean, it's always possible that it could just be like a different like version of a shadow person.
For all we know, it could be a completely other entity in its own.
Right, exactly.
They all
Or
just have the
we're all
similarity.
fucking insane,
I would put money behind that one.
Yeah.
and we're all just tripping here, or the simulation that is the universe is breaking down and we're getting glitches.
More and more every day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
I'll
No.
go with that.
the weird thing is, though, I will say about it is that when you're like, people have claimed, like, when they're being attacked or visited by these shadows people and stuff like that, that one thing that works for them to, I guess, push back against them is invoking Jesus's name or anything that sort of gives them power, you know, makes them feel positive or gives them courage. That is something I've noticed, and people will be like, oh, you know, I say, you know, in Jesus's name, back the fuck off, and then these things like move away.
Right.
Really, anything.
So, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's anything, because, you know, like, what gives something power? Well,
You
essentially,
give that thing
yeah,
power.
exactly. You're giving it power. So
when
if-
you take it away, you are power. You are the magic.
So, yeah, so like, you have people, you know, who they light sage, they go around places and they're like, well, it's cleansing everything, right? Well, it's more like
It's best practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's like
like-
holy water and the crucifix, you know?
Right.
It's symbols.
But
There's not really power in those.
right. No, I wouldn't. It depends. It depends on what works for you. It depends on how certain things are. You know, as a practicing witch, you know, I know correspondences. You know, for example, black, white, purple. You know, these colors are associated with protection and associated with like power and psychic protection and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know, so if I'm doing like a cleansing or something like that, I will wear black as a symbol of protection. You know, it's psychology, obviously. You know, when you see that color, you go, okay, you know, protection, stuff like that. Same thing with stones. You know, the basic protection stones are going to be black tourmaline, jet, obsidian, you know,
Onyx. Like,
onyx, kyanite, amethyst.
we could keep going.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Black pepper.
So, yeah, it's
Salt.
a catalyst. It's a catalyst to help focus in what your intentions are. It's a way for you to, I guess, confidence, gain more power in what you're doing.
I mean, I wouldn't
But
say that
that's why I'm saying it's
not,
like-
it doesn't work. Like, these things do work, but it's the magic that you have. You know, it's
But yeah, but that's literally what I'm saying. It's like, you're the power. These other things are a catalyst in a sense that either give you like more confidence in what you're doing and stuff like that. I don't know.
I don't know, but the song that literally just came into my head is the I Got the Power song.
I got the power.
Power.
Like, something to keep in mind. Everything and anything that happens in your space, whether you're talking psychic protection, magical protection, paranormal protection. You are the one that controls what's happening. You are the one that has to set the boundaries for it, you know, when it comes to a spiritual space. And like, I don't negate what happened in my spot at the time. You know, when I saw like the big shadow person like in the garage, you know, I didn't know everything that I know today. You know, while I grabbed my crystals and my herbs and stuff like that, I take into account that it was during a spiritual awakening moment. So there was a lot going on. Like, I'm someone that does have trauma. So, but poltergeist activity, I do take that into account too, because there was a lot of that going on at the time. So now, knowing what I have, I don't have the experiences like I had back then. I haven't had a dark shadow person experience like that, because I know that I command my space. I know that only what I allow to happen can happen in my space. So that's something really to take into account with a lot of these situations, and just really know that you are the one with the power. You are the one with the magic.
So code word, all of us have the power.
Correct. All of us have the power.
Have the power.
That's all I was stating earlier, though. That's all I was getting at, is like, you know, these things can be catalysts to help you gain your power, right? The control. So like when people are claiming in the name of Jesus, because Jesus is such a powerful thing for a lot of people, that like it stirs up confidence. It stirs up that positivity in them. So if that's really why I think really what it boils down to really is that.
So
it's just finding what it is. So if you are experiencing these attacks or anything like that, hold on to during those moments, think on the thoughts that
bring you power and encouragement. That really, you know, Jesus might be one of them.
Yeah.
God might be one of them. Goddess might be one of them.
I keep mishearing words, and I'm hearing, you said Jesus, but in my head I heard Jesus.
Jesus.
And I was like, yeah, the power of cheese. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All day, every day.
Dairy Lord and
Dairy Lord, give us the cheese
Swiss
to bless
Savior.
our souls.
Yeah, like one analogy that it's not an analogy per se, but like one thing that comes to mind when I think about like thinking of the positive is in that scene in Harry Potter and the Prisoner, the one with the Dementors. That's Prisoner of Azkaban.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
My brain.
I was gonna take away your Potter badge.
And see, the thing is Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite one, and the fact that I couldn't think of that like right away was just, it made me
fucking
mad.
Unacceptable. God damn you, Amanda. How dare you? Oh my God. Anyways, yeah, what's the analogy?
When
Expecto Patronum.
Yes, Lupin is telling Harry to think about his happiest memory, and that's how you like get rid of the Dementor. Like, you use that memory and the energy from that, and you say the Expecto Patronum, and it helps get rid of that. Like, that's literally the thing that just popped into my head. Like, think
that
of
works,
it's
though.
true.
That's exactly sort of how I see it in these cases, when people are saying, "Oh, that pushed him back," right?
Analogy, like, think about, we were talking about the Lupercalia stuff last episode. You know, they had these kids in a dark cave, and, you know, they did their thing, but then they left them alone in this dark cave. So what did they have to do? They had to laugh. So you've got all these kids laughing in a dark cave, like, because it's supposed to dispel that negativity, you know?
Yeah.
So everything is with conviction, you know? It's the intention you put behind it. You know, we've talked about this for our demon episode, I think, where, you know, when people go, oh my God, I'm having all of this like activity in the house, I better call a priest. Well, if I'm an atheist and I call a priest to come and cleanse my house, like, that ain't gonna do shit.
No, it's not.
So it's all about what you put your belief in, and it's a lot about backtracking from there, you know? What do you believe in and how that affects you? So, Buddy
once told me.
I'm going to hurt you. But we kind of went over it before, but some things that can help distill that protection or things that have protective properties about them. Again, the colors white, black, and purple are really good for protection. Mm-hmm. If you're someone that likes crystals, or if, you're a crystal addict like
me,
some of us are.
Me.
Really, any black crystal will help. So you've got, again, tourmaline, obsidian, jet, kyanite's a good one. Mm-hmm. Smoky quartz has a lot of really good protective qualities for it. Amethyst. Keep in mind, these crystals also have other qualities attached to them, but you got to tell them exactly what you want them to do. Mm-hmm. So distill that protection in with them. If you're someone that's more of like a kitchen witch who works with herbs and spices, some herbs and spices that really do help with that protective quality. Obviously, salt.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Salt is a really great one for cleansing, for protection. Salt circles. People salt their windowsills. They place salt in their doorways.
If you're Sam and Dean Winchester, you put them in bullets.
Yes. I still think it's a failed opportunity that they didn't put like salt inside of a hula hoop.
Yes.
And just
yes.
Come on, Sam. Yes. Sammy. Hula hooping through all their haunted homes. But salt, there's even black salt for that added oomph. Mm-hmm. You can make it yourself. There's a lot of DIY recipes online, or you can buy black salt from certain metaphysical shops. Believe it or not, your pumpkin spice bitches out there. You've got your ingredients. You've got nutmeg. You've got cinnamon, pumpkin. There's a lot of clove. Clove is a really good one for protection. Garlic, fennel, blueberry,
rosemary,
bay leaf, juniper, angelica.
We could keep going.
Basil, mint.
We get it.
All of these are really good. Hey, some people don't know. Okay, I'm letting them know. Hey, these are good things too. And symbols. Symbols are a really good way of protection. People wear crosses. Mm-hmm. They wear it on necklaces, bracelets. There's the pentagram, the Celtic cross. So those also hold really good protective qualities. You can make your own symbols. That's kind of the basis of sigil magic. Mm-hmm. And so warding the house, all of these things are really good ways to help amplify your protection, because work with what works with you. Because, again, if you don't believe in it, you don't hold any value in it, it ain't going to do shit.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of that scene from, This Is the End, that movie where it's the end of the world and all the famous celebrities are like in the house together. Uh-huh. And Jonah Hill gets taken over by a demon. Oh, yeah. And he's like, the power of Christ compels you. And he's like, really? Really, does it? Does it compel me? Well, let me tell you, it's not that compelling.
I love that movie.
Like, that is the prime example of that. Well, I think that's about all we have for our episode today. So, like always, please do us a solid, like us, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We promise we will have our YouTube up to date within the next fortnight. It's something we're working on.
Right, old English.
It's a lot of the stuff really does help if you know someone that might find it interesting, or just, randomly at a family get together. Easter's coming up. just go, hey guys, listen to Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters. You know, it would really help us out a lot. Leaving reviews also does a world of wonders, because not only does it let the world know, hey, we don't suck, but it shows them that we don't suck.
Yep.
Plus, if you give us constructive criticism, that also helps us out, because we know what we need to work on then.
Just be nice about it. I'm a little sensitive.
Hit me with the brutal truth.
We would love to hear your stories. If any of you have really interesting shadow people stories, let us know.
Yeah.
Please don't feel embarrassed about any of them, because everything is a big question mark. So if you have questions.
Yeah, if you have questions, if you know something about shadow people that you think maybe we might not know.
Hey, science fans out there, let us know your take on it.
Exactly.
Because, again, we're super open. We can only speak from the stories and stuff that obviously we've experienced or the people that we know. So hearing more helps us form more of a educated opinion.
Yes.
Please, if you haven't already, go ahead and listen to our previous episodes so you don't miss all of our code words for our
Contest.
For our coming up contest. You'll win a lovely planchette from Under the Ogham Tree, and you get to choose which spirit sister you want to have a tarot reading from. Next episode, we're super fucking excited to share that we will be joined by the one, the only Joe Diamond.
Joe Diamond.
The mind-reading master of the Midwest. I'm super excited with that. That's going to be a great fucking episode.
It really is. I'm excited.
It's going to be fun.
Go ahead, and if you want to figure out who the hell is Joe Diamond, go ahead, follow him, like him, subscribe to him on Facebook, Instagram. You can go to joediamondlive.com. We will link all of his stuff in our information, in our episode notes. But we are super excited to have that episode with him. I'm downright giddy. Fuck. All right. And with that, guys, stay spooky, folks.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye.